Good evening and welcome to Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, the place where we pretend that a talking cat knows enough about movies to critique professional filmmakers every week. I'm your host, Steve the Cat. Tonight we're going to talk about a found footage mockumentary that is very, very good, but also very, very dark. We'll get to that in a minute, but first we're going to check in with our resident conspiracy expert, codenamed Crimson Meerkat, who is currently in the Appalachian Mountains on a rescue mission. Hey, Meerkat, do you read me?
I read you loud and clear, Steve. I'm here with our local guide, Chip, who is assisting us in our search.
Hey, Meerkat, since we didn't do any kind of a previously on segment before the show, can you give a quick summary of who you are and what you're doing for the new viewers?
Certainly, Steve. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is... Well, you don't need to know what my name is. Just call me Crimson Meerkat. Yes, that's my code name, Crimson Meerkat. I am a published author and expert in all things conspiratorial, with a specialty in aliens and alien abduction. Last season, I was selected to head up a new government program whose mission was to search the cosmos for alien life, which mainly involved looking for signals containing bits of naughty horror movies from the VHS era. Don't ask why, it's very technical. Anyway, we were successful. Too successful, in fact. We were so successful that we attracted the attention of an alien race who invaded our space station and abducted my chief science advisor, Malcolm Fluffosaurus.
Whom you had left trapped outside when you locked down the control room to protect yourself.
Yes, Steve, it is true that in the confusion I mistakenly locked Malcolm out of the control room. Geez, you're never going to let me live that down, are you? Anyway, the aliens returned Malcolm after his abduction, but for some reason they released him here in the Appalachian Mountains. So I'm here to find him, and I've hired local resident Chip to be my guide. Guinevere is here too, but you can't see her because she's operating the camera.
So where are you guys now?
Yeah, dude, we're in the Haunted Black Woods, which are right outside the Haunted Black Cave. My camera drone was able to track Malcolm to this location before it was mysteriously destroyed, so this is the most logical place to start our search. But we have to be careful, dude, because there's ghosts everywhere in this place.
Of course they are, because ghosts are totally real.
Dude, stop disrespecting me, dude. This place is legit haunted. This is where I was with my girlfriend Vanessa when the ghost came and took her away. Dude, it was totally traumatizing, and you need to show some respect for my pain, and it... Hang on. What's that sound?
Chip, is that you?
Vanessa! You came back to me! Oh, Vanessa, it's you!
Oh, hey, Chip. So what's new?
What's new? I've been looking all over for you, but I never gave up the search. Now we can be together again.
Yeah, that sounds nice. Listen, Chip, I know this is really awkward, but I'm engaged. I'm getting married to a wonderful ghost named Harold. He's a Pisces and he has a really interesting aura. I've even converted so we can have a traditional wedding.
What? Vanessa, what have they done to you? Are they making you do this? Are you possessed?
No, Chip, they are not making me do anything. It's just that... Listen, I know this is hard to hear, but sometimes things come to an end, and sometimes you just have to walk away from the beer-soaked frat boy who's living off of his mother's credit card. But instead of being sad that something has come to an end, we should try to be happy about the good times we had and just, move on.
Are you serious? You left me for Harold the Ghost?
Oh, of course not, Chip. I left you for Miguel. But that didn't work out, so then there was Sven. But he was a Libra and had really bad energy, so we broke up. Then there was Ed, then Herbert, and then I finally found Harold. He's my soulmate.
Wait, did you just say Herbert? You dated Herbert the cave monster?
It was just a summer fling. There's no way it could have lasted. He's a Leo.
But I'm your soulmate.
Oh, don't be silly. You're more of a soul friend. And I really hope we can still be friends.
Did you just friendzone me? No! Well, things here just took an ugly turn, Steve. I'm going to have to throw it back to you while I talk my guide down off the ledge. Meerkat, out.
Well, that can't be good. So, in summary, it turns out that our local guide Chip's girlfriend actually did leave him for a dead guy, and he just got friend-zoned on live television. I'm not sure how this is going to affect the search for Malcolm, but I'm sure Meerkat can sort it out. Anyway, now that we've checked in on the search for Malcolm and given the latecomers time to join the live watch party, it's time to get down to the business of horror movies. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really glad that you're here. Now pour yourself a drink and sit back because here we go.
I had a tenant in this house here who was a very terrible person. This is the house where they found the Poughkeepsie tapes.
When we searched the yard, we found the bodies of 2 women, there and there.
Until we got our hands on those tapes, we had no idea what we were dealing with.
This killer knows how to play the profile in exactly the way he wants.
We found a deep hole here where there was buried a young couple and their 10-month-old baby.
What's that one's name?
Susie, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers.
Well, we knew there had been some killings, and we were aware that some of them appeared as though they were being carried out in an organized fashion.
There was a body of a man there.
The name is Slade!
When people think of serial killers, they think of 4 or 5 people, you know, Ted Bundy, Dahmer, Gacy, etc. But what most people don't realize is how many more there are.
And 4 more women there, 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 and there.
Hi, we're selling cookies. Would you like to buy some?
Sure. Why don't you come in?
It's time to get into our featured film review for the evening. Tonight we're going to talk about a film called The Poughkeepsie Tapes. Now, I watched the 4K version that was available at the time on Amazon Prime. There are standard definition versions floating around out there, and as well, I believe you can find this film on Tubi. It's available on a number of streaming services. This is a horror true crime mockumentary that was released in the year 2007. It was directed by John Eric Dowdle, and the cast includes Stacy Shvosky, Ben Mesmer, and many, many others, none of whom you are going to recognize or know unless they happen to be friends or family members. So let's get into setting your expectations if you're going to sit down and watch the Poughkeepsie Tapes. What you should expect is a realistic and very dark horror/true crime mockumentary about a serial killer / kidnapper, and when I say dark, it is dark. If you like Saw, you might like this film. If you like The Silence of the Lambs, you might like this film. If you like any true crime documentary, you'll probably like this film, assuming you've got enough stomach to watch the scenes of torture. Now, they're not that graphic in terms of blood and gore, but they're just cruel. So let's get into the scale we like to use. If you're going to watch this film, you need to align your expectations according to our scale. On the far left side, we have very campy films. On the far right side, we have very serious films. The Poughkeepsie Tapes is a very, very serious film. There is no comedy in this film. There is no comic relief. It doesn't really let you catch a breath as the film goes on. There's nothing to make you think, hey, it's all okay, or there's no winking at you to say, hey, this is all make-believe. It is all very realistic and very dark. It is not a popcorn film. Now, before we go any farther, we need to get into our vocabulary lesson. This, of course, is the part of the episode where we discuss new and innovative words and phrases in an effort to stay ahead of social media bots and algorithms that would otherwise try to ban our conversation. Social media bots and algorithms are always evolving to try to ban our speech, so our speech must evolve as well to stay ahead of them. First term is a review slang term from an earlier episode, can't touch this. This is a slang expression for striking a character with a hammer, often but not always on the head. And of course, for those of you who were not born in the 80s, this is derived from the song title You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. Second term is a new term, Draculectomy. Draculectomy is a noun referring to the action in a horror movie of puncturing a character's neck with one or more needles or comparable items and drawing or draining the victim's blood. Anyway, these are your vocabulary words. Please keep these terms in mind. They will become important later in the episode. So let's get into a summary of this film. If you're going to watch the Poughkeepsie Tapes, the film follows the format of a true crime documentary, and it chronicles the exploits of a mysterious serial killer working in the area of Poughkeepsie, New York. Although we never learn the killer's identity or motivation, he records everything on video cassette. This allows us to see his very first kill and everything afterwards. The man videotapes everything. After his first few kills, the killer abducts teenager Cheryl Dempsey and spends years physically and psychologically abusing her, forcing her to identify as his slave. That's literally the name she has to use to refer to herself. She's not allowed to have her identity. She has to call herself slave. As the killer's crimes draw more attention, he changes his MO and makes it appear that a police officer is the killer, so he's able to fool everybody and make them think that somebody else is the killer. As time goes on, the police locate and rescue Cheryl Dempsey, but the question is, can her mind be saved after years of abuse? That leads us, of course, to the abuser, our villain profile for tonight. His name is Edward Carver. Now, we never learn the killer's name throughout the course of the film, and Edward Carver is most likely just a pseudonym. But here we see him. He has a flair for the theatrical. They just identify him in the credits as Edward Carver. He belongs to the serial killer class. His special powers are stealth and the ability to stage his crimes in such a way as to confuse law enforcement about his identity and methods. And his signature weapon, well, he doesn't really have a signature weapon, doesn't really have a signature technique, but he does religiously videotape literally everything that he does. So let's talk about the things I liked about this film. Right off the bat, I enjoyed the true crime mockumentary feel of the film. The film is serious, it is dark and grim, without a hint of comic relief or breaking of the fourth wall. Now, that is not the sort of thing I can watch all the time, but I did appreciate it in the context of this film. It was a very tight package, very well done, very dark, grim, serious film. The story is interesting, and it's original enough to keep your interest, so you're going to keep wondering what's going to happen next. The pacing of the film is good, and the story advances with a minimum of dragging. And even though the story is told in the past tense, the film manages to build suspense and keep you wondering what is going to happen next. You're going to keep guessing until the very end of how things are going to end. Now, there are a few things that could have been better about this film, and right off the bat, the film is very, very dark, filled with scenes of torture, and can be very difficult to watch. Now, again, the torture is not as gory as something you're going to get in a movie like Saw, but it is psychologically cruel, and from that perspective can be very tough to watch. The film is grim. When the film is over, you will feel like you have been dragged through a ditch. This is one of those films that it's not going to leave you in a great mood necessarily. Now, your ability to be in a good mood after a film like this is going to vary from person to person. This is not a popcorn film. This is not a mainstream theatrical release. You are going to feel like you have been dragged through a ditch or dragged through the mud once this one's over. The grainy, distorted appearance used to indicate when we are watching one of the killer's videotapes gets tiresome after a while. It's kind of hard to believe that somebody who was so adamant about videotaping everything he did would have such low-quality videotapes. So it's clearly done so you know when you're watching the documentary versus when you're watching one of the killer's tapes. They make it look like the tracking is bad on the video cassette, and it's just, after a while, it's just agitating. And finally, there is seemingly no resolution at the end of the film. It almost feels like the filmmakers decided, hey, that's enough, and just kind of stopped. It doesn't feel like there's a natural conclusion to the story. And now a word from our benevolent overlords at PBDC TV, your nightly heartbeat of horror.
is a qualified psychic and spiritual medium who gives accurate psychic readings through a range of mediums. She is a professional consultant who uses her intuition to offer guidance to all of her clients, encouraging them to move in a positive direction and face the challenges that may lie ahead of them. She is also certified Reiki Grand Master and Shaman. Follow her on Facebook or YouTube each week for her weekly free live readings.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
So let's get to Steve's scorecard. Kills, well, it's kind of hard to keep track of in this one. I counted 10, but there are many, many more implied, but we see directly 10. Bare breasts, there are none. It is definitely not that kind of film. De-nogginings, we do get one, and it is very creative. In stumponatings, we don't see one, but there are many implied in the film. Pez dispenserings, we do have one. Can't touch thises, again we have one. And Draculectomies, we have one. And you get a nice close-up of the Draculectomy in this film. Oh, one more thing we get in this film, grave robbings. We get one of those as well. So in addition to a close-up of a Draculectomy, you get a grave robbing. But that's not all you get when you watch the Poughkeepsie Tapes. You get a number of bonus features, including kinky balloon action, lots and lots of grainy, distorted video. Like I said, it gets tiresome after a while. Exactly how many tricks are there to have the murder occur right off screen? So this is a found footage type film, and which means that it's difficult to do practical special effects because practical special effects are usually designed to work from one stationary camera angle, not something that works so well with a moving video camera. So a lot of the murders in this film happen off screen, and that also helps them out with getting past the censors to get the R rating as opposed to the X rating. You get Plague Doctor mask action. Yes, the serial killer in this film does have a flair for the dramatic and for costumes. You get Stockholm Syndrome action. You get cop framing action. You get a Ted Bundy sighting. Now, it is not the real Ted Bundy. It is an actor playing Ted Bundy, but it's still kind of interesting that they work the Ted Bundy as a real person and fictionalized into this film. And finally, don't worry about the fact that the killer in this film could be literally anywhere. Don't let that bother you. Don't let that concern you at all. Don't let that keep you awake at night. The fact that the killer could be anywhere and anyone. So let's get to Steve's final score for this film. I'm going to give it 3.5 paws out of 4. I really like this film. I've watched it a number of times. It is a dark, gritty, intelligent, well-made horror film that can be difficult to watch, but you won't want to turn away. It's an absolute must for true crime fans who can handle something dark containing elements of torture. Like I said, I like this film. It's not that I like the torture. I find it actually kind of difficult to watch, but it is a well-made film. It is an intelligent film. It is a good package from beginning to end, and I always feel like I've watched something of substance after watching it. So I do recommend this film. It does take a little bit of a strong constitution. It is a bit of a dark film, but I do recommend it. 3.5 paws. That is the Poughkeepsie Tapes, and that is our featured film review for the evening.
I'm supposed to catch a boat cruise from here? Or...
Yeah, a few years back, you'd be lucky if you saw any tourists up here at all. Yeah. Too remote for most people.
We're on bush time now, so should have you back around 5 or 6.
Jesus Christ. Hey, nice picture.
That silly bugger will think twice about going swimming at night, huh?
All right, the species that we're looking at today, the saltwater crocodile, is probably the most dangerous member of the crocodilian family.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
They're pretty much living dinosaurs who have been perfecting their hunting skills over 200 million years. What channel is it? Don't worry, man. We're perfectly safe on this boat. They won't attack anything bigger than they are.
It's really gone too far. We must be back. I can't have you out here anymore.
Okay, we should... What's wrong with the bite?
Well, it's going to be a real scorcher today, eh?
Yeah, no kidding.
We have reached the end of yet another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. But, as is our tradition, before we go, we're going to take just a minute to talk about some of the other stuff I watched this week. Tonight, we are going to talk about a film called Rogue. I found Rogue on Tubi, free with ads. Rogue is a 2007 Australian creature feature. It is an independent film. In this film, an American travel writer joins up with a group of tourists on a crocodile-watching cruise in Australia's Northern Territory. While cruising upriver, the boat's captain spots a flare in the distance, indicating a boat in distress. Naturally, being a good captain, the boat heads farther into the swamp to provide assistance, and as they do so, they encounter something gigantic and bad-tempered in the river. If you guess that that is a giant crocodile, collect your winnings. Congratulations for being able to look at the poster. So, what's the bottom line on this film? Well, overall, this is a good creature feature. Not an outstanding one, but it is a good creature feature. It features very good cinematography and an interesting story, and the acting is competent, so it checks all the major boxes. The creature special effects are much better than I expected in an independent film, so it's not the cheesy CGI graphics that you would expect from so many independent creature features. It's actually very competent. Now, on the downside, the film does follow the standard creature feature formula, so there's nothing particularly innovative about this film. But overall, it is a good film if you're a fan of creature features. Now, I say don't build an evening around it. It's not what I would call an event kind of film. It is a decent popcorn film, so if you've got friends who are fans of creature features, it's a good popcorn film, maybe a good opening act. It's a good one to watch before bed if you just want to unwind and you're a fan of creature features. Don't build an evening around this film. It's not that it's a bad film, it's a good film. It's just, it's not a great film because it is formulaic and it is kind of predictable. But it is well done for what it is. So that is Rogue, and that is some other stuff I watched this week. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. Of course, we always love to hear from you, so feel free to sound off in the comments about your favorite found footage mockumentaries or anything else that comes to mind. As always, if you did enjoy the show, please give us a like and a share. The best thing you can do to help us out is to share this video. If you want to stay up to speed on our latest videos and other goings-on, you can follow us and subscribe on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat is available exclusively through the PBDC Collective Incorporated, now fully incorporated but still your heartbeat of horror. If you're interested in horror movies, true crime, creepy history, or unexplained events, we're sure to have a show for you. You can find us at psychobunnydc.com, and we're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Rumble. We also have a 100% Zuckerberg-free Discord site. If you would like to check it out, just head on over to psychobunnydc.com and click the link for an invitation. We're back again next week with another classic from the VHS era. This time a great old creature feature featuring lots and lots of chomping and munching. It's going to be a great show, so we hope to see you then. But in the meantime, everyone have a great week and stay safe. We'll see you again soon. Good night, everybody.